Well, he didn't know that all of that Blairite stuff would cost him the leadership. But as the late Duncan McRae would say, you ken noo. But that's not to say that we should use the vernacular all the time. There are times when we have to be able to speak properly, and so many of our young people just cannot do that now. And I think that is, as Emma Thompson said, a severe disadvantage to them. Ryan in Manchester has a point of view which may be a little different. Let's hear it. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, George. I'd just like to say I agree with some of the things Emma Thompson's saying, for example, improving education, or at least getting people on a level where they can alternate between different types of English depending on the circumstance. But I'd also like to sort of draw a line somewhere, because we live in a society where it's normal to brutally split infinitives, or rather brutally to split infinitives if we're being grammatically correct, which of course most of us aren't, and I dare say that includes Emma Thompson. The point is, there are always quirks and idiosyncrasies within language, and it's a natural thing and helps language develop. And somebody like Chaucer would be turning in his grave, really, if he saw what language is like today, and no doubt Shakespeare would join him. But I think as long as language is being taught well in schools, then people should be able to use it in whatever way they see fit, and I don't see how it can be regulated. And to sum up all those points, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the song Ain't It Funny How Time Slips Away is better left as that rather than Isn't It Funny How Time Slips Away. And so as long as people know how to use language, there's little we can do whether they choose to use it in the right context or not. And just finally, I'd like to point out that I myself am 17, I go to school, and I think I don't tend to speak in the ways that Emma Thompson is referring to, so there's perhaps a certain chance that we generalize too much about young people, but that's a little beside the point, and well, that's the issues I'd like to raise today.
Well, apart from the tautology of I myself, that was a very impressive contribution, especially if you are 17. I just want to pick up a few of the points, Ryan, that you made.
Sure.
The issue of whether or not we can do anything about it. Well, oughtn't we to take the same view as the French and try and defend our language, try and insist upon its proper use? For example, I tried here for a while, I gave up now because a lot of people didn't like it, highlighting the grotesque, and I mean grotesque, illiteracy of some of the paperwork that came across my desk here at TalkSport from people who were busily telling us how English they were, how British, how English they were. I always thought it was appropriate, given that they were boasting how English they were, especially by comparison with other people, to point out that they were so English that they could barely write the language. If I, for example, tell you that at least 3, maybe 4 out of 10 people who write to me here and who use the word our, O-U-R, in fact write it A-R-E.
Yeah.
They think that the word our house, our school, our factory, is actually written A-R-E. Our factory,
yeah.
Our house. Now this is atrocious and should be resisted, because if we don't resist it, we'll end up with a nation of semi-literates.
Yes, well, I would agree on that point, and I think that education is where we can solve it. But to say that we can insist, I don't know how anybody would be affected by somebody insisting that they use certain language. There's little we can do. I agree, in principle, it's perhaps a good idea to insist, but I still think that language will change despite that, which is why I brought up Chaucer and Shakespeare, who use a very different type of language than is used today. And
indeed, but
in
the
future,
essence,
people
but Ryan,
will also look down on the way we use language today, and people will do so after they do as well. But where I agree with you, if people use to the best of their ability the plain English that is accepted, that is common in the day, then that can't be a bad thing in terms of their success in life, as Emma Thompson was pointing out, and that's somewhere that I'd agree with her in. But I think, number one, it's hard to enforce anything. There's the way people speak. And secondly, that as long as we improve education, some of these problems will dissolve over time.
Ryan, you're a clever young man. That's Ryan in Manchester, aged 17, opining on the issue of plain English, and very powerfully too.